For years, people have searched for complicated solutions to stubborn weight gain, sluggish metabolism, and chronic inflammation. Yet, the real breakthroughs often come from the simplest places. Olive oil has been part of traditional diets for centuries, but when used strategically during fasting, it does something far more powerful than most people realize. We're not talking about a trendy trick or a quick fix. We're talking about a metabolic tool that works with your biology, not against it. When you introduce a pure natural fat like olive oil into a fasting routine, the body responds in a remarkably efficient way, shifting gears, tapping into deeper energy reserves, calming hormonal chaos, and supporting mechanisms that many people struggle to activate through diet alone. Most people underestimate how a small intentional change can trigger massive internal shifts. And that's where olive oil fasting becomes truly surprising. What seems simple on the surface has profound metabolic consequences. And once you understand these effects, you begin to see why so many struggle with weight loss, cravings, inflammation, and energy crashes. They've been fighting their physiology instead of working with it. When most people think about fasting, they imagine complete abstinence from food and assume that only a zero-calorie approach can unlock deeper metabolic changes. What they often overlook is how the body responds to different types of nutrients and how certain natural fats can actually enhance the fasting process rather than interrupt it. The human body is built to switch between fuel sources. Yet in modern lifestyles, that metabolic flexibility has been almost completely lost. Constant eating, snacking, and exposure to sugar-rich foods trap people in a state of chronically elevated insulin, making it nearly impossible to tap into stored energy. When fasting begins, insulin naturally falls and a metabolic shift starts to occur. But for many individuals, this transition is uncomfortable, filled with cravings, irritability, and energy dips, making the process feel unsustainable. This is where olive oil brings surprising advantage. Not because it breaks the fast completely, but because it supports the metabolic transition in a way that aligns with how the body is meant to function. When a small amount of pure extra virgin olive oil is consumed during a fasting period, it does not spike insulin the way carbohydrates or proteins would. Instead, it provides a clean, steady source of energy that signals the body to continue in fat-burning mode. The body recognizes healthy fats as a compatible fuel that doesn't disrupt the hormonal environment needed for fasting to work. This allows people to slip more smoothly into ketosis, the state where stored fat becomes a primary energy source. Instead of feeling drained or mentally foggy, the presence of this natural fat helps maintain mental clarity, steady energy, and a calmer appetite, making the fasting window easier to sustain. What many people interpret as hunger is often just the body's resistance to switching fuels. And olive oil becomes a bridge that supports this shift without pulling the body out of the fasting rhythm. Metabolic switching isn't just about burning fat. It's about giving the body access to a deeper, more efficient energy pathway. When glucose levels drop and insulin decreases, the body starts looking inward to its stored reserves, breaking down fat and producing ketones. These ketones are not only a clean-burning energy source, but also send signals that influence inflammation, cellular repair, and brain function. The challenge is that many people struggle to get into this state consistently because the initial drop in glucose can trigger stress hormones and discomfort. Olive oil eases that transition by supplying a high-quality fat source. It reassures the body that energy is available, helping to calm the stress response that often appears in the early stages of fasting. This stability allows a metabolic shift to happen more smoothly, reducing the turbulence that causes so many people to abandon fasting before they reap the benefits. Another aspect rarely considered is how olive oil affects satiety signals. Hunger is deeply tied to hormonal balance, particularly insulin and ghrelin. When insulin is elevated, hunger becomes unpredictable and often overpowering. But when insulin remains stable, hunger becomes milder, more manageable, and more aligned with the body's true energy needs. Olive oil helps maintain that hormonal balance because it does not provoke a significant insulin response. It helps keep the appetite steady. This makes it easier to extend fasting periods without the discomfort of intense cravings. Many people find that just one spoonful of olive oil can help quiet the internal noise that usually pushes them toward impulsive eating. Beyond appetite control, Olive oil also influences the quality of the energy produced during fasting. Fat-based energy is not only longer lasting, but also smoother and more consistent. Unlike the rapid spikes and crashes associated with carbohydrate metabolism, fat as a primary fuel source gives the body a steady, reliable flow of energy. This steadiness is essential for maintaining the fasting state, especially for beginners who may feel fatigued or lightheaded as their bodies adapt. Olive oil's monounsaturated fats are easily absorbed and metabolized, making them an efficient partner to the fasting process. Many people underestimate the importance of feeling physically and mentally supported during fasting. When the transition feels easier, the body adapts faster and the benefits compound more quickly. Olive oil doesn't replace fasting. It enhances it by making the metabolic shift more accessible and sustainable. For individuals who want to tap into deeper fat burning, improve metabolic flexibility, and support the hormonal environment needed for fasting to work effectively, this simple addition can be a powerful tool. It allows the body to enter and maintain fat-burning mode with more comfort, stability, and clarity than a strict water fast might offer, especially in the early stages of the journey. Healthy fats play an entirely different role in the body compared to carbohydrates or proteins, and this difference becomes especially important during fasting. When most people think about controlling insulin, they focus only on cutting sugar or avoiding processed foods, but they often overlook how certain fats can support insulin regulation rather than disrupt it. The body is constantly responding to the food we consume, and insulin acts as the gatekeeper that decides whether we store energy or burn it. When insulin is high, fat burning shuts down almost completely. When insulin is low and stable, fat burning accelerates naturally. This is why fasting is effective. But it also explains why some people struggle with cravings, fatigue, or instability during their fasting windows. Their insulin levels remain erratic or reactive, making the transition into fat-burning mode more difficult. Olive oil offers a unique advantage because it provides fuel without provoking the hormonal response that interrupts fasting's momentum. When a person consumes even a small amount of extra virgin olive oil during a fast, the body does not respond when insulin spike because fats, especially natural unrefined fats, do not trigger insulin the same way carbohydrates do. This is a crucial point because most people experience energy crashes or hunger episodes during fasting, not because they lack willpower, but because their insulin levels rise and fall unpredictably. Olive oil helps flatten these hormonal fluctuations. It delivers energy that the body can use immediately, yet it maintains a metabolic environment necessary for fat burning. The stability it provides helps people stay in the fasting zone longer, making the experience less stressful and more consistent. Insulin is not just about blood sugar. It is deeply tied to how we store fat, how we release energy, how hungry we feel, and how inflamed our bodies become. Chronically elevated insulin is one of the primary drivers of weight gain and metabolic dysfunction. By integrating olive oil into a fasting routine, individuals create a safer and smoother hormonal landscape. This stability allows insulin levels to remain lower for longer periods, which is essential for breaking through plateaus and accessing deeper layers of stored fat. Many people who struggle with stubborn belly fat do so because their insulin never stays low long enough for the body to tap into those reserves. Olive oil supports that extension of time. It keeps energy available without interfering with the hormonal shift that fasting is designed to achieve. Another important aspect is how olive oil influences the stress response during fasting. When the body senses a sudden drop in glucose without any available fuel, it may release cortisol to compensate. Cortisol is a survival hormone, and while it is not inherently bad, elevated levels can interfere with insulin, appetite, and weight loss efforts. The gentle, sustained energy from olive oil helps reduce the likelihood of that spike in stress hormones. It reassures the body that fuel is still present, which can prevent the cortisol-driven roller coaster that often derails fasting attempts. This calming effect on the hormonal system is one of the reasons olive oil fasting feels more approachable for beginners and more sustainable for experienced fasters. Olive oil also interacts with the digestive system in a way that supports insulin stability. Unlike heavy meals or sugary foods, which require significant digestive effort and trigger spikes in blood sugar, olive oil is metabolized smoothly. Its monounsaturated fats move through digestion slowly and efficiently, providing a longer, steadier release of energy. This slow burn effect is ideal for maintaining low insulin levels because it avoids the sudden surges that come from quick digesting carbohydrates. With a more gradual energy supply, the body does not feel compelled to raise insulin aggressively, allowing fasting to continue uninterrupted. Another overlooked benefit is how olive oil influences satiety hormones like leptin. When leptin levels are in balance, the brain receives clear signals about energy availability and hunger becomes manageable. But when leptin is disrupted by processed foods, erratic eating patterns, or metabolic issues, hunger becomes exaggerated and persistent. Olive oil supports leptin sensitivity, helping the body's hunger signals become more accurate. This improvement makes it easier to maintain a fasting window because the body is not constantly sending false alarms demanding fuel. Stable leptin and stable insulin often go hand in hand, creating an environment where fasting feels more natural and less like a battle. What makes olive oil particularly valuable is that it strengthens metabolic control without forcing the body into severe deprivation. Many people give up on fasting because they associate it with intense hunger or weakness. But olive oil provides a middle path that still allows metabolic benefits while offering physical and hormonal support. This balanced approach helps people remain consistent, which is ultimately the most important factor in long-term metabolic improvement. Consistency is what allows insulin levels to remain steadily low, what allows fat burning to become the default mode, and what allows healthier hunger patterns to reestablish themselves. By stabilizing insulin, supporting hormonal balance, and delivering clean energy, olive oil becomes a strategic ally in the fasting process. It doesn't replace discipline or effort, but enhances the body's natural rhythm, making fasting less stressful and more effective for those seeking deeper metabolic change. Most people think fat burning simply happens when you stop eating, but the reality is far more nuanced. The body doesn't immediately switch to burning stored fat just because food intake stops. Instead, it goes through a gradual transition where hormones, enzymes, and cellular signals must align. This transition is often where people struggle the most. They begin a fast expecting smooth, immediate fat loss, yet they're met with discomfort, cravings, and energy drops that make the process feel harder than it should. Olive oil becomes an unexpected yet powerful tool in smoothing this metabolic shift and ultimately enhancing the body's fat-burning efficiency in a way that aligns with our natural biology. When a small amount of extra virgin olive oil is taken during a fast, it does not pull the body out of fat-burning mode because it doesn't elevate insulin or trigger the metabolic responses that typically halt fasting benefits. Instead, it provides a body with high-quality monounsaturated fats that are quickly absorbed and used for fuel. This immediate availability of fat-based energy sends a clear signal to the body: continue burning fat, instead of switching back to glucose metabolism, which happens easily when the body senses stress or energy shortage. Olive oil reinforces the fat-burning pathway and makes it easier for the body to stay there. This reinforcement is critical because the beginning stages of fat burning are often delicate. One small disruption can delay or even halt the process. But the presence of clean, natural fats helps stabilize the metabolic environment so that fat burning becomes more efficient and consistent. Fat burning efficiency is not just about how much fat the body burns, but also how smoothly it accesses stored fat. The body stores fat in adipose tissue, but it must release fatty acids and convert them into usable energy. This process requires hormonal cooperation, particularly low insulin and stable energy signals. Olive oil supports this process by preventing the dramatic energy dips that often cause the body to resist burning stored fat. When glucose drops too quickly, the body sometimes responds by slowing metabolism or increasing hunger to force food intake. Olive oil helps prevent that internal alarm system from activating. With a steady, reliable source of fat, the body feels supported rather than threatened, making it more willing to release stored fat and convert it into ketones. Another important factor is the body's enzyme activity during fasting. Enzymes responsible for breaking down fat are highly sensitive to the hormonal environment. When insulin is even slightly elevated, these enzymes slow down. But when insulin remains low, enzymes like hormone-sensitive lipase and lipoprotein lipase become more active, allowing fat breakdown to accelerate. Olive oil plays a supportive role here because it helps maintain the hormonal conditions these enzymes need to function optimally. The body stays in a state where fat is a preferred fuel and continues burning it with fewer interruptions or setbacks. This makes fat burning not just possible, but more efficient and sustainable. Many people underestimate how much inflammation affects fat burning. Chronic inflammation can interfere with hormonal signals, impair insulin sensitivity, and slow metabolic processes. Olive oil contains natural compounds, such as polyphenol and oleocanthal, which support the reduction of inflammation. When inflammation decreases, the body becomes more responsive to hormonal cues and more effective at using fat as a primary energy source. This reduction of internal inflammation clears a path for smoother fat metabolism. It's not just about calorie restriction or eating less. It's about creating an internal environment where fat can be mobilized and burned without resistance. Additionally, olive oil helps stabilize appetite, which indirectly enhances fat-burning efficiency. When hunger spikes during fasting, people often misinterpret it as a sign that fasting isn't working. However, hunger spikes are commonly caused by unstable blood sugar or hormonal imbalances. Olive oil smooths these fluctuations, making hunger less aggressive. Without the distraction of intense cravings, the body can maintain a steady metabolic rhythm. This stability keeps the fat-burning process uninterrupted and more predictable. The longer the body remains in a stable state, the more efficiently it taps into deeper fat stores that are normally harder to access. Another overlooked element is the effect on mitochondrial function. Mitochondria are the powerhouses of cells and play a crucial role in converting fat into usable energy. The healthy fats found in olive oil support mitochondrial efficiency, helping to produce energy more cleanly and effectively. When mitochondria are functioning well, fat burning becomes smoother because the cellular machinery responsible for energy production is operating at a higher level. This increased efficiency allows the body to use fat with fewer energy crashes and less oxidative stress. Olive oil also helps maintain consistency, and consistency is what drives metabolic adaptation. The body becomes better at burning fat the more often it is encouraged to do so. By making fasting more manageable, olive oil allows individuals to maintain the fasting routine long enough for the body to truly adapt. Over time, this adaptation means the body shifts more easily into fat-burning mode, stays there longer, and performs more efficiently once it's there. The cumulative effect is more profound than any single fasting session. It's about supporting the body and becoming a more effective fat-burning system. Overall, inflammation plays a silent but powerful role in almost every chronic health issue people struggle with today. From stubborn weight gain to joint stiffness to metabolic slowdowns that make fat loss feel nearly impossible, most individuals don't realize that their internal environment is constantly being shaped by invisible inflammatory triggers, poor quality foods that elevate insulin, stress that disrupts hormonal balance, and even irregular eating patterns that keep the digestive system overloaded. One of the most overlooked benefits of incorporating olive oil into a fasting routine is the remarkable anti-inflammatory effect it can produce. When fasting already gives the body a chance to rest, repair, and reduce inflammatory signals, adding olive oil can further amplify this process by supplying compounds that directly support inflammation control at cellular level. Extra virgin olive oil contains natural polyphenol that act as biological messengers, calming down pathways associated with chronic inflammation. These compounds don't work like synthetic drugs that block symptoms temporarily. Instead, they influence the underlying mechanisms that contribute to inflammation in the first place. When the body is in a fasted state, it becomes more responsive to these natural signals because the digestive system is not constantly processing food. This makes the anti-inflammatory properties of olive oil even more effective. The body is already shifting into cleanup mode during fasting, breaking down damaged cells and clearing out metabolic debris. So the calming effects of olive oil meet the body at a moment when it is primed to repair and restore. One of the key triggers of inflammation is unstable blood sugar, which leads to elevated insulin levels. High insulin does not just affect weight. It also fuels inflammatory responses across multiple systems. By providing a clean, steady source of fat that does not spike insulin, olive oil supports an environment where inflammation is less likely to be triggered. This helps break the cycle that keeps many people trapped in a state of chronic inflammation without realizing it. Over time, Consistently supporting stable insulin levels through fasting and healthy fats can lead to deeper improvements in metabolic health, joint comfort, and overall energy. Olive oil also plays a direct role in reducing oxidative stress, which is a major contributor to inflammation. Oxidative stress occurs when the body produces more free radicals than it can neutralize, creating a ripple effect of cellular damage. This can impair mitochondrial function, slow metabolic processes, and make fat burning more difficult. The antioxidants in olive oil, especially hydroxytyrosol and oleuropein, help neutralize these free radicals and reduce the burden on the body's repair systems. When paired with fasting, a natural reducer of oxidative load, the antioxidants in olive oil work even more efficiently because the system is not overwhelmed by constant incoming energy from food. Another factor often overlooked is how inflammation affects hunger signals and mood. When the body is inflamed, hormonal communication becomes distorted. People may experience cravings, unstable appetite, irritability, or low motivation without understanding the root cause. The calming effect of olive oil helps regulate these internal signals. By reducing inflammation, the pathways that control hunger, energy, and mood begin to function more clearly. This is why many individuals who incorporate olive oil into their fasting routine notice not only less physical discomfort, but also more stable mood and improved emotional balance. The brain is highly sensitive to inflammation, and even small reductions can lead to noticeable improvements in clarity and focus. Olive oil also supports the gut, which is one of the largest and most important centers of inflammation in the body. The gut lining can become irritated or damaged by processed foods, irregular eating, or high-sugar diets, leading to inflammatory responses that spread throughout the body. Fasting gives the digestive system a chance to rest and heal, and olive oil enhances this process by supporting the gut barrier and reducing irritation. Its healthy fats help nourish the cells of the gut lining, making it easier for the body to repair itself during the fasting window. A healthier gut means fewer inflammatory signals circulating throughout the body, which translates into better metabolic function, reduced bloating, and more consistent energy. The anti-inflammatory effects of olive oil-supported fasting extend to the cardiovascular system as well. Chronic inflammation can stiffen blood vessels, increase blood pressure, and make the heart work harder. The monounsaturated fats in olive oil help keep blood vessels more flexible and responsive, while fasting naturally improves cholesterol transport and reduces triglycerides. When these two strategies are combined, they create a strong protective effect that supports the entire cardiovascular network. As inflammation decreases, the body becomes more efficient at performing the tasks fasting is designed to promote: burning fat, healing damaged tissues, and improving metabolic flexibility. Many people wrongly assume that only extreme fasting can create dramatic changes. But the truth is that reducing inflammation is one of the most powerful metabolic levers available. Olive oil helps the body tap into this leverage more effectively by creating a calmer internal environment. The more peaceful the internal landscape becomes, the better the body can access deeper layers of healing and fat-burning potential. When people think about fasting, they often worry that their body will begin breaking down muscle for energy, especially in the early stages when food intake is limited. This fear comes from a misunderstanding of how the body prioritizes fuel sources. The body is naturally designed to protect muscle tissue and use stored fat first. But this process works best when insulin is low and energy remains stable. For many individuals, the transition into fat burning during fasting feels uncomfortable, which can trigger stress hormones and metabolic resistance, making the body hesitate before tapping into fat reserves. Olive oil becomes an essential ally in these moments because it helps the body preserve muscle while accelerating the breakdown of stored fat, creating a smoother and more supportive fasting experience. When a small amount of extra virgin olive oil is consumed during a fast, it provides a steady supply of energy without raising insulin. This is crucial because insulin plays a major role in determining whether the body burns fat or reaches for muscle protein. When insulin stays low, the body is far more likely to select fat as its primary energy source. By preventing insulin spikes, olive oil protects the hormonal environment needed for muscle preservation. Instead of panicking due to sudden energy shortages, the body experiences a sense of stability, signaling that muscle breakdown is unnecessary. This calm metabolic state allows the body to continue burning fat efficiently without tapping into lean tissue. Another reason olive oil helps protect muscle is its impact on ketone production. Ketones are produced when the body breaks down fat for energy, and they are known to be muscle-sparing. When ketone levels rise, the body becomes less dependent on glucose, and therefore less likely to break down amino acids from muscle to create it. Olive oil supports the production of ketones by supplying clean, readily available fats that encourage the liver to stay in fat-burning mode. As ketones increase, they provide fuel for the brain and muscles, reducing the need to break down protein. This shift is one of the most important protective mechanisms during fasting, and olive oil helps strengthen it. Muscle preservation is also influenced by the body's stress response. When hunger or energy instability triggers stress hormones like cortisol, the body may begin breaking down muscle in an attempt to stabilize blood sugar. This happens more frequently during strict water fasts, especially for beginners or individuals with metabolic challenges. Olive oil helps prevent these cortisol spikes by offering a slow, consistent source of nourishment. When the body feels supported, the stress response stays calmer. Without those hormonal surges, muscle tissue is far less likely to be targeted for energy. Instead, fat continues to serve as the primary fuel source, allowing fasting to work in a way that aligns with the body's natural design. Beyond its metabolic effects, olive oil also supports muscle health through its anti-inflammatory properties. Chronic inflammation can weaken muscle tissue, impair recovery, and slow metabolic efficiency. Olive oil contains compounds that help soothe inflammation throughout the body, allowing muscles to function more smoothly, even in a fasted state. Reduced inflammation means the body can maintain strength and performance while continuing to burn fat. Muscles operate more effectively when they are not battling constant inflammatory stress. And olive oil provides a protective lining that reduces internal friction during the fasting process. Olive oil's healthy fats also support the absorption of fat-soluble nutrients, which play an important role in muscle maintenance. Vitamins such as A, D, E, and K are essential for muscle repair, bone strength, and metabolic balance. When these nutrients are absorbed efficiently, the body has the raw materials it needs to maintain muscle tissue, even during extended periods without traditional meals. Olive oil enhances this absorption without interfering with fasting, providing a layer of support that helps muscle tissue stay strong and nourished. Another factor that contributes to muscle protection is energy consistency. When the body experiences energy crashes, it becomes more likely to turn toward muscle breakdown to compensate. Olive oil helps prevent these dips by offering a stable source of fuel that keeps energy balanced. This consistency is especially important for individuals who fast regularly or use fasting as a tool for weight management. The more stable their energy remains, the less pressure is placed on muscle tissue. Over time, this leads to improved body composition, where fat decreases and muscle remains intact. Olive oil also creates a psychological benefit that indirectly protects muscle. Many people struggle with fasting because they associate hunger with weakness. When hunger becomes overwhelming, they fear their muscles are being depleted. Olive oil counters this fear by reducing hunger and providing a sense of metabolic strength. When mental clarity and physical stability are present, people can continue fasting without anxiety about muscle loss. This confidence helps them stay consistent, and consistency is what ultimately leads to healthier metabolic outcomes. By providing clean energy, maintaining low insulin levels, supporting ketone production, reducing stress hormones, decreasing inflammation, enhancing nutrient absorption, and stabilizing appetite, olive oil acts as a powerful protector of muscle during fasting. At the same time, it accelerates fat loss by guiding the body into a deeper, steadier fat-burning rhythm. The result is a fasting approach that burns fat more efficiently while preserving the strength, structure, and function of the muscles people work so hard to build and maintain. Hunger is one of the biggest reasons people give up on fasting. Not because they lack discipline, but because their body sends intense, confusing signals that feel overwhelming. Most people don't understand that hunger is not simply a physical sensation. It is a hormonal event. Hormones like ghrelin rise and fall in predictable patterns. Yet in modern eating habits filled with constant snacking, sugar surges, and irregular meal timing, those patterns become disrupted. This is why many individuals feel hungry, even when their body has plenty of stored energy. Olive oil plays a powerful role in correcting this imbalance because it helps stabilize the hormones that drive hunger, making fasting far more manageable and sustainable. When a small amount of extra virgin olive oil is consumed during fasting, it does not cause the blood sugar or insulin spikes that trigger cravings. Instead, it offers a slow and steady source of fuel that communicates to the body that energy is available, calming the hormonal alarms that create the sensation of urgent hunger. Ghrelin, the hunger hormone, rises in waves, and these waves tend to peak at habitual meal times. Without support, these peaks can feel intense, but olive oil helps flatten the peaks, smoothing out the sharp edges of hunger, so the fasting window feels less stressful. This change transforms fasting from a battle against willpower into a biologically supported rhythm that the body can adjust to naturally. Another reason olive oil helps with hunger control is its effect on satiety hormones, such as leptin. Leptin is responsible for signaling fullness and energy sufficiency to the brain. When leptin sensitivity is damaged, often by processed foods, overeating, or chronic inflammation, the body sends false hunger signals even when energy reserves are high. Olive oil's healthy fats support better leptin signaling, helping the brain interpret the body's true energy state. This means fasting becomes easier because the body stops pushing for unnecessary food intake. As leptin sensitivity improves, hunger becomes more aligned with actual needs rather than emotional or habitual cues. Olive oil also supports hunger management by supplying a type of energy that burns steadily rather than rapidly. Carbohydrates burn quickly and often leave people feeling hungry shortly after eating. This is because rapid digestion results in a sudden drop in blood sugar, which triggers a new hunger cycle. Olive oil digests slowly and offers a stable release of energy, preventing these sharp swings. During fasting, this stability is essential because even minor fluctuations can trigger cravings, mood changes, or fatigue. Olive oil prevents these fluctuations, keeping hunger calm and manageable. There's also a psychological dimension to hunger that olive oil helps address. Many people associate hunger with discomfort or anxiety, especially if they are new to fasting. This fear-based hunger can create a self-fulfilling cycle where the anticipation of hunger triggers cravings even before energy levels drop. When olive oil is used as part of fasting routine, it helps the body feel supported, reducing the mental tension associated with hunger. The mind becomes calmer because the body feels nourished. The sensation of hunger becomes less threatening and more predictable, allowing individuals to remain focused and confident during their fasting window. Olive oil's anti-inflammatory properties further contribute to hunger control. Inflammation in the gut and digestive system can distort appetite signals, making hunger feel stronger or more frequent than it truly is. When olive oil reduces inflammation, communication between the gut and brain becomes clearer. This improved communication helps the body send accurate hunger messages, preventing unnecessary or exaggerated hunger pangs. A calmer digestive system also means fewer cravings driven by irritation or discomfort. Another important aspect is how olive oil prevents the cascading hormonal events that occur when the body feels deprived. During strict water fasting, some people experience drops in energy that trigger stress responses. The body interprets this stress as a need for immediate food, amplifying hunger. Olive oil interrupts this cycle by offering a gentle source of nourishment that reassures the body without interrupting the fasting benefits. This reassurance prevents the body from entering survival mode, keeping hunger controlled and stress hormones lower. As hunger becomes more stable, the fasting window becomes easier to maintain. When individuals no longer feel controlled by cravings, they gain the confidence to extend their fasts and experience deeper metabolic benefits. This consistency helps the body adapt, making hunger patterns more predictable and less intense over time. Eventually, the body begins to rely on stored fat more naturally, reducing the frequency and intensity of hunger waves altogether. Olive oil makes fasting more approachable for beginners and more effective for experienced individuals by supporting hormonal balance, stabilizing appetite, improving satiety, reducing inflammation, and calming the stress response. When hunger becomes manageable, fasting no longer feels like a struggle. It becomes a sustainable lifestyle choice that aligns with how the body is designed to function. When the body shifts into a state of deep metabolic awareness, something remarkable begins to unfold at the cellular level, something most people never truly realize is happening beneath the surface. We often think of health as a collection of visible changes: fat loss, more energy, clearer skin. But the most powerful transformation is occurring in places we can't see, inside the machinery of each cell, where the balance between energy production and energy demand determines whether the body thrives or slowly breaks down. Cellular resilience isn't something you buy. It's something you build through intentional choices that remove metabolic clutter, reduce oxidative stress, and give your mitochondria, the engines of life, the opportunity to repair, renew, and strengthen. When you reduce the constant influx of glucose spikes and the nonstop overstimulation from processed foods, oils, and sugars, your cells begin shifting from a reactive mode to a restorative mode. And that shift is what creates the long-term stability the body needs to reverse metabolic dysfunction. The moment you allow your insulin levels to stabilize even slightly, something changes in the internal communication pathways. The cell signals begin to act with greater clarity instead of being drowned out by hormonal noise. And this quiet, stabilized environment is what promotes better fat mobilization, better energy release, and better mitochondrial efficiency. People often underestimate how sensitive the human body is to insulin fluctuations. Even small spikes can disrupt the cellular environment for hours, blocking fat-burning pathways and forcing the body back into storage mode. But when you give the body time to remain in a low insulin state, the internal wiring starts to recalibrate. The mitochondria become more efficient at oxidizing fatty acids. Inflammation decreases, and the body starts using energy in a way that supports longevity instead of accelerating aging. This is why structured fasting windows, gentle metabolic resets, or even simplified nutritional approaches can trigger such profound changes. When insulin drops, AMPK activation rises, and with it comes an increase in autophagy, the body's way of clearing out damaged proteins and dysfunctional cellular parts. This process doesn't just clean the cell, it improves the function of the entire metabolic network. With less debris and metabolic waste, mitochondria work more cleanly, produce fewer free radicals, and create more stable energy, which translates into clearer thinking, steadier mood, and a noticeable shift in physical vitality. But what's even more interesting is the synergy between metabolic stability and hormonal balance. When you interrupt constant snacking and grazing, cortisol levels also begin to regulate more naturally. Hunger signaling returns to its original design, and the body experiences a more natural rhythm between feeding and fasting. This rhythm is deeply connected to human biology. Our ancestors spent more time in states of metabolic rest, allowing the body to efficiently switch between energy sources without the stress modern diets impose. That flexibility, the ability to burn fat seamlessly when food isn't available, is what many people have lost today. Insulin resistance, chronic fatigue, stubborn weight gain, and brain fog are the consequences of losing metabolic flexibility. But by lowering insulin levels and giving the body consistent periods of cellular recovery, you begin restoring that lost flexibility, making the body more efficient at using stored energy and less dependent on constant external fuel. As the internal environment becomes more stable, inflammation markers begin to quietly decline, which affects everything from joint comfort to cardiovascular health. Inflammatory pathways are directly linked to insulin signaling, oxidative stress, and mitochondrial overload. When you remove the metabolic burden and allow the body to function naturally, these inflammatory pathways cool down and the body becomes more responsive, lighter, more energized. Many people experience improvements in digestion, mental clarity, and sleep quality because the body is no longer fighting constant metabolic disruption. The cells are working with you instead of against you, and this cooperation becomes a foundation of long-term health. The more consistently you maintain low insulin periods, the stronger your metabolic engine becomes. Your body shifts away from fat storage and toward efficient fat usage, turning your stored energy into a reliable fuel source. This creates an internal momentum where the benefits intensify over time. The cellular environment becomes cleaner, hormonal balance becomes smoother, and energy becomes more stable. All because the body is finally operating according to its natural design without the interference of constant dietary stimulation. When you begin to understand how the body responds to metabolic pressure, you start seeing that health is not determined by willpower or random luck, but by the signals you send your cells every single day. One of the most overlooked concepts is that every calorie you consume, every spike in insulin, every drop in glucose, every burst of oxidative stress send a message to the body that either encourages healing or contributes to metabolic decline. The body is constantly listening, constantly adapting, and constantly responding to these signals, whether you are aware of them or not. And one of the strongest signals it can send is a deliberate reduction of metabolic friction. The constant push and pull created by overeating, snacking, high carbohydrate loads, and processed foods that keep the body stuck in an inflamed, insulin-resistant state. When you begin removing these sources of metabolic friction, something remarkable begins to unfold at cellular level. The body becomes more efficient, more resilient, and more capable of switching between fuel sources. And this shift has profound implications for long-term health, energy, and weight balance. Most people don't realize how fragile metabolic pathways can become when continually overwhelmed. The average modern diet exposes the body to excessive glucose spikes and insulin surges, leaving cells confused, sluggish, and resistant to the very hormone designed to regulate energy. Insulin resistance doesn't happen overnight. It builds slowly, silently through repetitive cycles of metabolic stress. Over months and years, cells begin pushing back, shutting down their insulin receptors, refusing to accept more glucose because they are already overloaded. This internal resistance forces the pancreas to produce even more insulin, further worsening the cycle. But when you interrupt this loop with periods of metabolic rest, your cells finally get the opportunity to respond differently. Insulin levels begin to fall, glucose variability shrinks, and the body becomes more sensitive, more responsive, and more efficient in the way it handles energy. A key part of this transformation is a reduction of oxidative stress, the internal rusting process that happens when the body burns energy inefficiently or in excess. High glucose loads generate free radicals, and when cells are constantly exposed to them, mitochondrial function becomes compromised, energy becomes unstable, fatigue becomes more frequent, and inflammation becomes chronic. But when you lower the metabolic load, allowing cells to burn cleaner fuels like fatty acids and ketones, oxidative stress decreases dramatically. Mitochondria become stronger, more numerous, and more efficient. This isn't just a small improvement. It's a critical shift in the body's entire energetic design. Strong mitochondria are the foundation of better metabolic health, clearer cognitive function, healthier aging, and improved hormonal balance. But the benefits extend beyond mitochondria. As metabolic friction decreases, the body begins to correct imbalances in hunger hormones like ghrelin and leptin. When insulin is constantly elevated, hunger signals become distorted, pushing you to eat even when the body doesn't need fuel. This is why people often describe feeling out of control with cravings. It's not a lack of discipline. It's a metabolic signal problem. When insulin finally stabilizes and hunger hormones recalibrate, you begin experiencing true hunger instead of constant cravings. The body stops pushing you toward energy you do not need. Appetite becomes calmer, more predictable, more aligned with actual nutritional needs rather than hormonal confusion. Another powerful shift occurs in inflammation pathways. Chronic metabolic inflammation is the underlying factor in many modern conditions, including hypertension, fatty liver disease, obesity, and type 2 diabetes. This inflammation acts like a slow, silent fire that damages tissues, disrupts hormonal communication, and accelerates aging. But when you reduce insulin spikes and stabilize metabolic function, inflammation begins to cool, CRP levels decline, inflammatory cytokines quiet down, and cellular environments become more stable. This change is often felt before the scene. People report clearer thinking, lighter digestion, easier movement, reduced bloating, and improved sleep. All because the internal inflammatory pressure has been reduced. Over time, the compounding effect of reduced metabolic friction becomes obvious. Energy levels increase because the body no longer burns glucose inefficiently. Weight begins to shift downward as the body becomes better at accessing stored fat. Mental clarity sharpens because the brain is no longer fighting rapid energy swings. Even emotional stability improves as hormonal fluctuations become less extreme. This compounding effect is one of the most powerful aspects of metabolic healing. Each improvement amplifies the next. Better insulin sensitivity leads to better fat burning. Better fat burning leads to cleaner mitochondrial function. Cleaner mitochondrial function leads to more consistent energy. More consistent energy leads to better daily habits. And better habits reinforce the metabolic improvements even further. This positive cycle is what creates lasting change. The body is designed to heal when given the right signals. And those signals come from intentional eating patterns, reduced metabolic load, and periods of cellular recovery that allow the body to operate the way it was meant to operate.